I'm sure that you've heard, if you see something, say something. And yes, I stand by that 100%. What happens, though, if you're the person that's happening to, and you're afraid to say something to somebody else? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to episode 61 of the Positivity Experience. When abuse is not taken serious, not only by others, but also for the person who's going through the abuse. Check it out. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 61 of the Positivity Experience. I am your girl Lori, and this is a late night recording. This is like 11:30. I had a really busy day today because I'm trying to wrap up some things. I'm due to get on a plane here in the next couple days. I'm going to be going out west to do some skiing for a few days. Your girl is super happy about it, but I definitely had a lot to get done. I cooked some food. I made some cookies because I make homemade cookies, and I made some peanut butter cookies and chocolate chip cookies, and made a chickpea chowder. I also made a big salad. So I just did a lot. And so this is a late night, Saturday night evening with my friends, which is you guys. And I did just want to say, you know what, guys, I love you and I thank you. I got a lot of good feedback and a lot of people saying thank you for the bonus episode. And I just thank you for listening. So before we jump into this week's topic, I'm going to give a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about abuse. If abuse and the topic of that is triggering for you, I'm going to encourage you to sit this one out. Okay? Just sit this one totally out. If, however, you feel like you can get through it, I'm here with it. I'm here with you for it. And great. So I'm going to kind of like go radio silent for like 3 seconds or so. And again, if in fact the topic of abuse of any type is triggering for you, I would encourage you once again to just sit this entire episode out, okay? Okay, so you guys are back and I am here with you. So the reason that I like to give that trigger warning is, not everybody is at that place where I've gone through so much healing and do so much healing for my clients that I can literally talk about abuse and ordering a pizza in the same sentence, and it's going to give me the same effect. It's just, that's me. But not everybody is there. And so when you talk about abuse, though, very often people go immediately into shame, right? Like, oh my God, okay, God, I don't know if I want to even think about my abuse or talk about my abuse. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of exposure therapy. It's something that has always helped me. It's something that I do with a lot of my clients, is to have you face the things that you fear the most, including your triggers, including your past. And for many people, they try to avoid their triggers. If you're ever working with me one-on-one, we're going to face your triggers. So again, I'm not going to be for everybody because my approach is going to be not aggressive negatively, but it's very effective. I'll tell you that, but it isn't going to be for everybody because I like to get you to the place of walking through what those triggers are, reliving those triggers to show you that on the other side of what you're going through, giving you tools on how to regain your power. But again, not everybody is there, and I respect it. So that's why I like to give a little trigger warning in the beginning. And, it's a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a while, and a lot of you have reached out to me to cover it. And you guys know a lot of my traumas. You'll know more when the book comes out. But it's interesting because the time that I grew up, I was born in 71. So think late 70s, early 80s, really what I can really kind of retain as far as like remembering. And it was just a really weird time. It wasn't so much like, how nowadays it's like, if you see something, say something. Oh yeah, it was completely opposite of that. Hey, I mean, listen, some of it was good because they stay in your lane, mind your business. If you didn't mind your business, sometimes you'd get throat punched and you'd learn very quickly to mind your business. So in some ways that was fine, but that's black and white, right? So you can't just be like, okay, well, I'm never going to say anything about somebody's marriage. Cool, you shouldn't, but you should say something if somebody is getting hurt or damaged, right? So to me, it was very problematic. And I feel like a lot of kind of the shame that some people, or judgment that some people will give you, especially if they're older, would come from that space of A, not understanding, B, trying to stay in their own lane, but then giving you their opinion with it. So it's just, I really think that so much for anybody around my age, even a little bit younger and older, I feel like we were just really kind of gaslit from the door in our lives about, be seen, not heard, speak only when spoken to. I mean, that in itself is abuse. Be seen, not heard. Okay. So you can see me, but speak only when spoken to. So you can see me, but I got to walk around with no opinion. And I can't really say how I feel unless you grant me permission to now speak. From the door, that's a level of abuse, right? It's gaslighting, which is abuse. And I think that that's the thing, right? Is for many people, they were told also, hey, be selfless. Be selfless. Always put yourself last. Complete crappy advice. Yes, be selfless. That's beautiful. I like that part. Always put yourself as a priority. And so it's just, there's a lot of unboxing. And I'll be honest with you, I see a lot of that because it's not even just older people. Maybe somebody's parents has still adopted that from their parents. And that's kind of how those generational traumas continue to happen because that's, what you know, right? You're given sort of a blueprint and these limited beliefs when you're born from the people who are raising you and who are your superiors and your elders based on the skills that they have. And then we grow up and younger people grow up and they adopt sort of a part of that. So this is why breaking the patterns and breaking the chains and the bonds of all of these different traumas is very valid to understand that you have the power to do that. But when we're talking about levels of abuse, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things and the biggest reasons that people don't say something is because they're afraid that they're not going to be believed. Literally. I'm not going to make it difficult for you. That's legitimately what it is. People are afraid that they're not going to be believed. And I'm going to keep it 1,000 with you here. There will be some people, barring you having physical physical bruises and various things on your body, there will be people who will look and be like, is that like what? Okay, I need you to not let that stress you. Listen, I know it's easier said than done. And here's a little secret, and you need to hear this now. Sometimes, it's not cynical, it's facts. Sometimes the people in your immediate family are not going to support you in a lot of this as much as somebody outside of the family will. And I'm not talking about family. I'm talking about law enforcement. I know they don't always believe you. I hear you, but just hear me out on this. There's also, you have various 800 numbers that you can call. And matter of fact, in the show notes of this, which will be the description, there will be the 1-800 hotline number for abuse that will be right there. They also have a text feature now where you can just text. So you can't always, it might not always be safe to pick up the phone and be like, hi, so by the way, sometimes you just want to text a number. So they do have that option and I will put that in the show notes. Okay. You can do it anonymously, but it's always, and when I say anonymously, it's to report somebody else. But it's important, see something, say something kind of thing. But I digress a little bit, but not really, because that was still relevant for me to tell you. But it is important for you to realize that for many people, not just with abuse, but with mental health, with various things, like if I say to you, hey, I have OCD, which I do, and I explain to you how, you go, oh, what do you mean you have OCD? You walk out the door fine. You don't have to turn the knob 5 times. Yeah, that's correct. That's not all OCD is. And so you have to realize for some people, if it doesn't look like the image in which they put in their brain, and this could be you, not just other people, this could be you. Somebody could, be indicating to you that they're getting abused in some way, whether it be physical, sexual, mental, emotional, anything. And you may think, they look fine. They're driving a Bentley. They live in a nice house. They look fine. Like, I don't understand. Because you're expecting it to be like a face, like a certain look. Abuse isn't always going to be somebody with bruises or somebody getting raped. Yes, that is abuse. That's facts. But that's not all abuse. So I think the the big thing for me, and again, I'll speak from my own experience. When I asked Shirley, my cousin Shirley, which I said a few episodes ago, when I had my aha moment where I knew I didn't need anybody else's why, is when I asked her when I was in my 30s, like, hey, did you guys know what was going on with Dad? And she's like, oh yeah, well, we all knew, but your dad kept you away from us. Valid. He did. And it's interesting though, because at that moment, I knew I didn't need their validation to do it. Now, of course, I was in my 30s now. My abuse was when I was, 6, 7, 8 years old till up to 18. Not sexual, that was more physical, but the sexual went up to about 13. So, it's like, okay, well, I don't really care why you didn't now. And that was a reality for me, is to realize that it didn't matter because it was so many years later that it was irrelevant. But my point to that to you is this. It isn't always for other people to say something. And this is the hardest part. This is specifically for people who are going through abuse. I'm not saying people should not say that. Never said that. But what I am saying is it's for you to realize that your abuse is very real. And unfortunately, a lot of times abuse isn't always taken serious because of it not looking like what the poster child of what people think abuse is. And that can be so problematic. So that, not being believed, and then kind of the sister to that is the humiliation. So you feel humiliated and you feel shame and you feel guilt. And I'm going to tell you right now, I hear you, right? Like when people go through abuse, again, it doesn't always have to be sexual, any type of abuse. There is a level of shame or guilt or, oh my God, what would people think? And who cares? Let me be very clear. I do not care what people think. You got to stop that. If people start getting into you because you're dating you're married to a narcissist, male or female, doesn't matter. Born male, female, doesn't matter. You're with a narcissist. Let me explain to you a little bit about narcissists. Narcissist, to everyone else, super charismatic. Best thing since sliced bread. Oh my God, they're so sweet. Oh my God, every time I see them with their family, they're amazing. Oh, Bill was so sweet. He came over and he really helped me with stuff. God, he's nice. Okay. Meanwhile, at home, you're told you are nothing without someone. You are a piece of shit. You are lucky that they are giving you any attention whatsoever because you could not be anything without them. FYI, let me tell you, that's abuse. That's abuse. Make no mistake, that is abuse. And where that becomes problematic is now you go through, oh my God, everybody loves Bill. Everybody loves Bill. They would never believe me, and they would think I was totally lying on Bill if I came out with me saying that I'm going through emotional abuse, right? And here's the deal. No, that is exactly what a narcissist wants you to feel. That is exactly what a narcissist wants you to feel. And I promise you, I'll do whole different topics on narcissism because that's countless, right? And narcissism isn't just because you look in the mirror and think that you look pretty and you tell people you look pretty. No, don't get that twisted. Okay, a narcissist and being narcissistic, like NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, is a huge part when it comes to abuse. I don't know. Am I saying, there's I don't have any numbers. I'm usually good with numbers because I do a lot of research and I like to see numbers. But where I was going with that was, I was getting ready to say, everybody who abuses you is not necessarily a narcissist, right? Because, and I still kind of want to stand by that because sometimes people could be going through something and let's say it's a snap or it's a moment in time or something happens. I don't necessarily think that that's a narcissistic move, right? However, that being said, and again, I really want to kind of dig into that a little bit, it maybe in a different podcast, because initially I was going to tell you, yes, everybody who is an abuser is a narcissist. And that is a lie. It just is. It may come across that way, but I just don't feel as though that's adequate. Now, would I say that I think that most people who go through various levels of abuse will carry a certain level of narcissistic personality disorder? Absolutely. I will stand by that with you. But I just want you to realize that a lot of the reasons that people don't even report abuse, it's not even that it's not just taken serious, is that people won't report abuse because they're afraid that they're not going to be believed. And if they are believed, that they're going to be humiliated. And that is awful. And that's usually always a sign that there's severe trauma there from the abuse. Because it's funny, and I'm not funny, haha, but you know what I mean, ironic funny, where when my brother, who, like I said, we didn't even really talk like that, but when my brother called Child Protective Services, which I didn't know at the time, later found that out later on in life, when that happened, I had my out, right? We've talked about this before. I had my out. Child Protective Services came there to my house. This is after years of me going, please let me be adopted. Please let me be adopted. Should I run away? Literally thought about joining the circus. I realize how cliche that is, but I was going to either join the carnival, the circus. I was going to do something. And I kind of did at one point. Like later on in my teen years, I sold magazines door to door in Los Angeles, which was kind of cool because I got to meet a lot of celebrities. But it was just anything I could do to get out of the house. But this was later on, right? But I had my out. They were literally sitting there. They could have taken me away and in my brain taken me to the Mecca, which you don't never know that that's what's going to be. However, in that moment, I was trauma bonded to my dad. I was trauma bonded. I knew that it wasn't great, but and again, I'm going to be very fair here. It wasn't all bad, right? Like my dad wasn't like this. Listen, he had his problems, right? We know now he's bipolar. He had a lot of this stuff going on. My dad wasn't necessarily a bad person. He was a very troubled person. And he did have good qualities. And in that time, that's all I knew, right? And because I was trauma bonded, let me explain a little bit about a trauma bond. It's where you feel as though you want to, it's way more technical, but I'm going to try to do it for like 101 dummies or whatever you want to call it. So it's to understand that I knew I wanted out until it came down to that space. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And immediately I was like, I can't, I don't want to do this. I literally, it wasn't even that I couldn't do this. I didn't want to. I wanted to, but I didn't want to. And and I promise you, again, I'll do a whole topic on trauma bonding and what that looks like and how to break it. And it's not overnight. You're not going to do it by yourself. And this is where this all comes into play. And again, this is why a lot of abuse is not taken serious, because let's say, and this is where people have to be careful too, because then it gets into victim blaming, right? So now, and I'm going to give you an example of that. You decided after 20 years of marriage, you're going to leave your narcissist spouse. You're done. You're tired. The kids are grown. You have a little bit of money put aside. You have the courage that day. You've now told your friends and your family, I'm leaving. I'm so happy. I'm finally getting out of here. I'm leaving here. You leave. This narcissist of yours does the whole love bombing thing. And as soon as you're gone, because they didn't believe that you were going to leave. Now you got the cojones to leave. You've been gone a few weeks. They start chewing I'm changing. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Love bomb, love bomb, love bomb, love bomb. Now you get back with them. So now this is like the first time that this has happened. So your friends and family are like, we love you. We'll support whatever you need, because they don't really understand the magnitude of it. Well, 6 months later, you guys get into a knockdown, drag out fight. I mean, knockdown, drag out fight. Now you have those, what people would see as to be abuse. You have the bruises. You have all of that. Everyone is there to support you. There may be outside people who don't know the situation that now see on paper, you had some red flags. You left. You went back to the person, had abuse. Why would you do that? That was dumb. I'm not saying this. This is what they would say. This now goes into victim blaming. Well, that was stupid. You shouldn't have been back with him in the first place. Okay, easy to say that when you're not trauma bonded. So the three main reasons that people don't report it and then kind of sit on it is exactly what I just covered. Not being believed, being humiliated, and actually being blamed. right? And this is where, if you ever listen to true crime, and you guys know I do a lot of stuff like kind of like evaluating people's mental and stuff, but it's kind of like if you ever hear a story about a sex worker, and a sex worker gets killed, especially back, this is more in the 70s and 80s, but let's say they get killed because that's, a lot of people were targeted sex workers, right? Because they assumed that they wouldn't be missed because most of them had run away from their families. And very often those cases wouldn't even be taken that serious. They'd be like, just another one. Seriously. Like, those are the words that would come out of some people's mouth. Oh, it doesn't matter. They don't matter. No, they do matter. They're humans. So if you look at history, and if you even look at some things that go on in the news today, here in 2022, where we think we're all woke now and everybody's so much better. And okay, yeah, fine. We are. We've come leaps and bounds in many ways. And in many ways, we are just either staying the same or sometimes even regressing. And that's what I'm saying. Now, this isn't just for you. This is, for you, the person who's suffering the abuse. This is why you got to check your judgment. If you find yourself thinking that you heard that in Baltimore, 3 sex workers were killed, and you go, well, it was a dangerous job. Now, I'll be honest, you do get desensitized, especially living in a city, right? But you get desensitized all the way across the board. You don't get desensitized just because it's a sex worker. And this is where you really have to check yourself on your own judgment. Because very often you're thinking those thoughts too. Well, if they wouldn't have been in that situation, you know how it is. You don't put okay, sounds real good, but you don't know why somebody does the things that they do, and you don't have to. But I use sex workers because it's just something that, it's known. Certain people, you will find that certain people, when things happen, and let's say it's abuse of physical or sexual nature, and it's a risky, say, position, or it's a risky place, people immediately almost go into, well, it's whatever. No, that's victim blaming. Okay? I understand that, hey, you got to keep your head on a swivel, stay safe, do all of those things. Valid, I hear you. But I'm here to tell you the reasons why sometimes abuse is either not reported or not taken serious, which in turn creates more problems, because then people aren't going to want to report it because they just saw everything that happened, right? So this is why you need to realize that the level of where we are, and no matter how far we've grown and how far we've come, we have a long way to come, right? A long way to come. And that's where it becomes, like I said, problematic, right? If a person, born male, female, doesn't matter, goes into a club, and they're at a club and it's 3:00 in the morning and they get roofied, and you go, well, they were at the club. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, so they were at the club. So now they got roofied and it's okay because that's just, it is what it is. And so I say this to you because I want you to be very clear, because when it's on you, and this is the reality, and this is what you got to really hear. You've seen it with COVID-19. You've seen it with various things, and with abuse. If it's not happening to you, or in your backyard, it's real easy to look down your nose in judgment. Oh my God, why would they do that? I can't believe that they put themselves into that condition. She knew about that. She knew he was an abuser. She knew he has a history of abuse, or she has a history of abuse. Why would you get with them? Okay, why are you sitting there judging somebody? Because you don't know what it's like to be with a narcissist unless you're with a narcissist. You don't know what it's like, take narcissism out of it. You don't know what it's like, unless you're in it, to be so insecure that you're willing to hold on to a relationship regardless of how abusive it is. And until you've been in those shoes, you have no business judging somebody else. None. Okay? Like I said, a total different topic, but still abuse in some ways, right? If you watch The Tinder Swindler, I've literally, people are like, these women are stupid. Why would you give somebody $25,000 3 times in a row? That's so dumb. Okay, real easy to say. You don't know what it's like. Again, that guy is a total narcissist. And he's not stupid. He preyed upon people that he knew that he could maneuver. I'm going to tell you right now, a narcissist and an abuser very rarely will go with a situation that may be challenging for them. If they realize they can't manipulate the situation, and honestly, sometimes narcissism's so bad, they just assume they could just bamboozle everybody, and you're like, dude, let me check you, because that's not the case. So I say this to you because if you are struggling with abuse and you think this is the third time I'm back with this person, okay? And don't get it twisted. Men are not just narcissists. Women are too. Okay? And it's not just one gender. So we're not going to do that game either. We're not blaming just one gender. Gender assigned at birth. Okay? So I say this to you because I need you to realize if this is what you're going through, I promise you there is a way out. You can't see it because you're in it. And every time you feel like you just get out of it, you're like, oh my God, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Oh, and then something happens and you have to go back. What you don't get to do is start abusing yourself based on the abuse that somebody else is giving you, by calling yourself stupid, by calling yourself broken, by saying, I can't do any better. Now you're contributing to the abuse, and sometimes even worse in some cases than the abuse that others are inflicting on you, because you're living in that headspace. Now here's the other side of why, not the other side, but another side of why things are sometimes not taken serious. And it's unfortunate, but it's with everything. Mental health, abuse, money, anything, relationships. Sometimes people have caught, and I've seen it, because like I said, I've had clients that have had to go through the legal system, had their name dragged through the mud, had to lose their jobs, only to find out they were I knew, but only to find out in the public that they were completely innocent, because a person didn't get what they wanted. So they decided they were going to not only smear campaign someone, because people are going to smear campaign you, it is what it is, but to the point to where they're taking action. They want you to lose your job. They want you to go to jail. They want to paint you as this. Now, I'm saying there are really people like this who do those things. However, there's also innocent people that get accused of abuse of many forms that are actually innocent. So that's the muddy water. That's a muddy water. So then so now fast forward ahead. Some judge just saw this whole thing play out, took 2.5 years to play out. This was this true story. So, like 2.5 years or so to play out, they end up paying the people a lot of money, pay the guy a lot of money, because it was wrongly done, not the judge himself, but other people. And the ironic thing though is now this would be a fictitious part, but could be true. Let's say his next case tomorrow is a legitimate abuser, and a very legitimate abuser, but has this like really smug kind of like, okay, he's got a really good defense attorney and he's smug. Now the judge, it's not a jury trial. Now the judge sits there and goes, well, it sounds like, and again, the judge is not an idiot. He's been doing this for years. He can see through these things, but I'm telling you, I'm kind of just like letting you know, like these things could happen. Where now, after that 2.5 year case, and everybody was hell-bent sure that person was guilty, hell-bent sure, till all this stuff comes out. Now they feel stupid because they're like, damn it, we just like totally convicted a wrong guy. So now they're going to be a little bit more gun shy going into the next case. This next case, absolute abuser. Maybe not a physical abuser, but an absolute emotional narcissist abuser. And now the judge is a little bit more hesitant in other people seeing it as an open shut case. So I'm saying this to you because these are the reasons why people sometimes don't report abuse, because of those fears, and why sometimes those abuses aren't taken serious. And that may not change. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and be like, it's coming down the pipeline, it's going to change. No, I think you're going to see a lot more awareness. I think it will improve. Do I think it'll ever be 100%? I don't, just because you're dealing with different humans, different, belief systems. But this is why I see it I lived it, right? But I see it in my practice all the time. And yes, in both birth assigned genders. And I say this to you because I make sure to help people when they talk to me, because sometimes people don't even know that it's abuse. And sometimes people think something is abuse just because somebody didn't spend enough time with them. So sometimes it's got to be like, okay, wait, let's talk about it. What's happening here with you? This is why life coaching is like life. I'm telling you, it's amazing. And once we get there, then that's where we start building up that esteem for me to say, okay, listen, let's talk to these people. Let's call in the bigger guns. Let's call in different lawyers. Let's call in different divisions. It's not always about calling your mom and telling your sister and telling your best friend. Sometimes it isn't, because they're close to the situation. And what if they are absolutely love your partner, but they don't really know everything because your partner has told you, don't you dare say anything about me. You're going to have problems if that happens. It happens. So to be clear on why things sometimes aren't taken serious, it is those things. And very often, the person who has the hardest time to sometimes take it serious is the person who's going through it. And my words of caution to you, what can you do to help? Okay, so let's go into that for a minute. If you see something, now there's various levels of abuse. So if you see something, somebody's really getting beat down, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? 911, you call, you make sure that you give your statement. Don't just call and ghost out, right? Okay, that's kind of an easier one because it's pretty much open and shut. Same thing with child abuse. Little bit more, no, I wouldn't say open and shut, but a little bit easier to report because it's there. Where it becomes harder and where you have to be careful, because there's a fine line, right? There's fine lines of when you step in. And I know it kind of gets a little quirky. But when you see physical abuse, the typical physical abuse of what you would know as abuse or sexual or things like that, you absolutely report it. You step in. You overstep your boundaries and you call 911 and you do the damn thing. Now, here's where it becomes tricky. You have a best friend or a sister or a sibling or whatever who is in a narcissistic, abusive relationship. This is emotional abuse. This is control. This is the tricky part, because when you try to help, if the person is not ready to get the help, if the person is not ready to do it, you will become the villain. Because now the person that you're trying to help at first will like it, but then when the narcissist runs the whole gamut, which at this point he or she has already put in doubt into their heads anyway, because the whole idea of a narcissist is to try to distance yourself from the family, anybody who's close who can help. So now they have a conversation, they find out what happens, they kind of manipulate the situation. Now your sister, who you decided to overstep the boundary with because you were trying to look out for her, now says to you, please don't ever call me again. Stay out of my business. And you're like, what the hell just happened? I literally 5 minutes ago, she was arguing with me, yelling at me, crying with me, saying she just needs me to help her. I help her, and now she hates me. So this is where you have to be careful. When it is see something, say something, when it's somewhat something that you can prove. Where you can't prove it and where you have to learn to stay in your lane is in these domestic type situations. Be there to help if it becomes dangerous physically, because emotionally, all you can do is be there if the person asks you to be there. Now, what happens if the person keeps asking you to be there? That's where your boundaries have to come into play. If every month your sister keeps saying, help me, help me, help me, there's going to come a point in time where you got to stop. This is the key to boundaries. Yes, in abuse, there is a space of boundaries on when you stay in your lane. Now, also keep in mind, people parent different. So just because you see somebody's kid, and again, I don't mean your traditional and typical like abuse and stuff that you would know would be like, oh my gosh, this is extremely dangerous. If someone parents different than you and you're like, oh my God, that's abuse, right? Some people believe in spanking. Some people do not. You may look at it as abuse. Some people may not. Okay. So again, there's a fine line of where you interject from an external person. And that is the part that you got to understand with your boundaries. You see something, say something. when it is necessary. But when you want to help someone get out of a narcissistic or an emotionally abusive relationship, you got to be careful. You got to be careful, because it's kind of like way smaller scale. You and your best friend, 16 years old, you guys are hanging out. She has a boyfriend, and her boyfriend gets drunk one night. You guys are all hanging out partying. She goes to the bathroom. He tries to stick his hand down your shirt and try to make out with you. She comes back. You don't say anything that day. Next day you sober up. You go, girl, can I just tell you what Billy did? What the hell? While you went to the bathroom, he tried to grab my boob, and he tried to make out with me. So now she's like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking? What? So now she says something to Billy. Billy lies his face off. I don't know what you're talking about. She's lying. You know, she's trying to come on to me. Now she looks at you and says, could you please stay out of my relationship? I can't believe you. I thought that you were my friend. You're like, what? Yeah, I mean, seriously, stay out of my relationships. And matter of fact, we're not friends anymore. So now you're left to deal with that. So this is why there's that thin line on where you stay in your lane. And in this case and situation, you can only be there. This is including if they're your children, if this is your mom, if this is your best friend. Be very careful. Be there to listen. Don't always be there to solve. Be there to hear. Don't get overly frustrated if all you do is hear them complain. What you do is you allow yourself to establish that boundary. So I just want you to be careful, because if you're the person going through this, I promise you, when you are ready, there is help there for you. And there will be numbers there. You can always reach out to me on any of my socials. You guys know I'm super accessible. You guys also know that you can always book an appointment with me. That's always listed in the show notes. But you can always reach out to me, and I will make sure that we can get you some resources that you will need to do that. And if you see something that you know is abuse and you know that it's not good, you report it. You pick up the phone, you report it, even if you have to report it anonymously. However, if it's something that you see is happening, it's not like detrimental to someone's physical health or life. I'm not saying their mental health, but you have to stay in your lane too. Be there when needed. Okay? So I hope that gives you just a little bit of insight on why abuse isn't always reported by the person who's going through it, and why sometimes it's not taken serious. Is it something that we have to work on as a community and as a humanitarian type people? Yes. Yes, it absolutely is. But that's why your self-love, your boundaries, because sometimes you have to be really strong, not only to report something, because that takes a lot of courage, right? If you're on the outside, that takes a lot of courage to pick up the phone and call. But sometimes it takes more courage to learn when to separate and walk away from situations that you deem is bad for somebody. And I don't mean overly abusive, bad for someone. You got to learn from your boundaries when to stay in your lane. Be there when needed. It's the same thing with mental health. If you're like, my mom needs therapy, you cannot force her into therapy. Do not try to do it for her. That's going to create more problems. And this is another case of that. So for anybody who's struggling out there, I got you. I love you. I hear you. I've been there different ways. We all go through abuse in different ways, but I've been there in my own way. And you're not destined to stay in this forever. I promise you, you're not. And when you are ready, there are resources and there are options, even if you fear it from a financial perspective. Okay? So, but I love you guys. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Please jump into my DMs on Instagram, official Lori Wheeler. Let me know if you want me to cover certain topics. Go in on the Positivity Experience little group on Facebook. You can always follow me on TikTok, Lori Wheeler. All of those links and everything will be in the description here. And just remember, guys, be kind to everyone, but especially and always to yourself. Check it out.